I remember the exact moment my world collapsed, but the story really begins earlier that afternoon. I was wiping the last table in the small restaurant where I worked, smiling like an idiot because I had good news. I kept thinking, tonight I tell Emily. I even practiced the words out loud. I said, Emily, they promoted me today. Finally, Daniel, I imagined her saying, I always knew you would do it. I laughed at myself and shook my head. Why are you grinning like you just won the lottery? Mark asked. I might as well have, I told him. Oh, he said, don't tell me the boss finally noticed you exist. I got the promotion, Mark whistled. No way, assistant manager? Yeah. He clapped my shoulder. That's Daniel, that's huge. So tonight you celebrate with Emily, right? Dinner after her shift, I said. I'm going to tell her everything is finally starting to work. Mark smiled. She'll be proud of you. I hope so, I said quietly. I finished setting the tables and waited. Every minute felt important. Then the door opened. I looked up smiling. Emily? I called, but the smile died instantly. She wasn't alone. Emily walked toward me holding another man's hand. Victor Hale. I had seen him on magazine covers. He looked at me like I was furniture. Daniel, we need to talk, Emily said. My voice came out thin. Why are you holding his hand? Emily sighed. Please don't make this dramatic. Dramatic, I laughed once Emily, you walked in with Victor Hale. Victor finally spoke. Relax, he said calmly. You already lost. I stared at him. Emily, what is happening? She avoided my eyes. I'm leaving you. The words punched through my chest. For him? Yes. I shook my head. We've been together 5 years. Emily crossed her arms. And am tired of struggling. Am working every day. I said I just got promoted today. She blinked once. Assistant manager of a tiny restaurant. That matters to me. Victor chuckled softly. Danielle, right, he said. I didn't answer. You should thank her. Victor continued. She chose a better future. My hands trembled. Emily, I said slowly, tell me you're joking. She looked almost bored. I'm moving in with Victor tonight. Silence rang in my ears. So 5 years meant nothing? Emily shrugged. It was comfortable. I felt something break inside me. Mark suddenly stepped forward. Hey, he snapped, you can't just walk in here and destroy him. Victor looked amused. Watch me. Mark glared. Emily, this guy worshipped you. She looked away again. I'm done here, she said. I whispered one last question. Did you ever love me? Emily paused. Once. Victor opened the door. Come on, Emily. She followed him, not even a goodbye. The door closed. I stood there shaking. Mark spoke softly. Daniel, say something. I laughed weakly. What should I say? That my life just exploded? Mark rubbed his forehead. She's insane. Maybe I murmured, or maybe she finally saw who I really am. Mark frowned. You're a good man. I looked at the empty doorway. Good men don't get chosen, I said. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. We locked the restaurant in silence. Hours later, I sat alone in my apartment. I replayed every memory, every promise, every sacrifice. I whispered into the dark. Was I really that worthless? The room stayed silent. I leaned back and closed my eyes. Emily thought she knew everything about me, but she didn't know the truth. I exhaled slowly. There's one thing you never knew, Emily, I said quietly. I was never as powerless as you believed, and my biggest secret was still hidden. Tonight, everything had changed, and soon the world would change too. My phone buzzed. It was Mark. I answered. Hey, he said, you okay? No, I replied, not even close. Want me to come over? I hesitated. Just talk to me, he insisted. All right, I said, ask me something. Do you still love her? I stared at the ceiling. Yes, I admitted, but I also hate what she did. Mark sighed loudly. Then listen to me carefully. I'm listening. She didn't leave because you're small. Then why? Because she's greedy. I rubbed my face. Victor Hale Mark continued, that guy buys people. I noticed. But Daniel promised me something. What? Don't let this destroy you. I was quiet for a long moment. Too late, I said softly. Mark's voice hardened. No, not too late. Daniel, you're smarter than everyone here. You just hide it. My chest tightened. Maybe I'm tired of hiding. Mark paused. Daniel, what do you mean? I looked at the dark window. I mean, Emily thinks she chose power, but she has no idea what I've been building. Mark went silent. Then he whispered, Daniel, what secret? I smiled for the first time that night. You will see soon? How soon? Soon enough to change everything. Mark exhaled slowly. All right. He said, I trust you. Good, I replied. Because tomorrow I continued my real life begins. And Emily Carter will regret tonight. I ended the call. The apartment felt different now. The pain was still there, but something colder replaced the heartbreak. I spoke quietly to the empty room. Emily, I said you thought I was nothing. You thought Victor Hale was power. I stood and looked out the window. City lights stretched across the darkness. I whispered again. But the truth is simple. I was never the poor man you believed. And when you finally learn who I really am... I let the sentence fade. A slow breath left my chest. Your new billionaire won't be enough. Because the man you abandoned... I smiled into the dark. Is far more dangerous than you ever imagined. And tonight was only the beginning. I turned off the light. Darkness filled the room, but inside my mind plans were already moving. Goodbye, Emily, I whispered. Enjoy Victor Hale while you can. Soon everyone will know me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch staring at the ceiling while Emily's last words echoed in my head. I'm tired of your small life. I laughed quietly to myself. Small life, I muttered, if she only knew. The truth was simple. I wasn't just a restaurant worker. 3 years earlier, my life had taken a turn I never told anyone about. Not Emily, not Mark, not anyone from that little world I built around myself. Except 2 people. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. The screen lit up with a name I knew very well. Sophia Bennett, I answered. Good morning, Daniel, she said in her calm, precise voice. Morning, I replied. You sound tired. I didn't sleep. That's unlike you. I rubbed my eyes. Rough night. She paused. Does this have anything to do with Emily Carter? I sighed. You already know? I make it my job to know things, she said. Did she leave? Yes. There was silence on the line for a moment. I'm sorry, Daniel. Don't be, I said. She made her choice. Sophia's voice shifted into business mode. Then we should discuss tomorrow. I know, I said quietly. The board meeting is scheduled for 9 o'clock sharp. I remember. You've delayed this long enough. I leaned back on the couch. I wasn't ready. You've had 3 years, she replied. 3 years. 3 years since Mr. Leonard Hayes changed my life. I could still hear his voice from the hospital room. Daniel, he had said weakly. This discipline matters more than talent. I know, I told him then. I built something powerful, he continued. But power without character destroys people. I held his hand. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm giving it to you. I thought he was joking. Giving me what? Hayes Global Holdings. I remember staring at him. Mr. Hayes, that's impossible. Arthur Collins cleared his throat beside the bed. It's quite possible, the old lawyer said. The paperwork is ready. I shook my head. You can't just give me an investment empire. Mr. Hayes smiled faintly. I can, and I did. Back in the present, Sophia's voice pulled me out of the memory. Daniel, I'm here. You're thinking about him again, aren't you? Yes? He believed in you, she said. He believed in a version of me I wasn't ready to be. That's not true. It is, I said. I wanted a normal life. You hid from your own company. I wanted love, not power. Sophia sighed softly. And how did that work out? I looked around the empty apartment Emily and I had shared. She left, I said. Another pause. When Sophia spoke again, her voice was quieter. Then maybe it's finally time you stopped hiding who you are. Her words hung in the air. You think so? I asked. I know so. I stood up slowly. What time did you say the meeting was? 9. All right. Sophia sounded almost relieved. So you're coming? Yes. Good, she said. The board will finally meet their real owner. I grabbed my coat. Sophia? Yes? Who's first on the acquisition list? She hesitated. But you might find this interesting. Tell me. One of the companies belongs to Victor Hale. I stopped walking. Victor Hale? Yes. I laughed once under my breath. You're not serious. I wish I weren't. I grabbed my keys. Well, I said calmly, fate clearly has a sense of humor. Sophia's tone sharpened with curiosity. What are you thinking, Daniel? I opened the apartment door. I'm thinking Victor Hale might regret yesterday. And Emily? I stepped into the hallway. She chose power, I said. Then I smiled slightly. Now she'll find out who actually has it. A week later, everything changed. I stood behind the glass wall outside the Hayes Global Conference Room, watching the people gathering inside. Executives, analysts, lawyers, everyone preparing for one of the biggest acquisition meetings of the quarter. And the man at the center of it had no idea who he was really dealing with. Victor Hale thought he was meeting a board of executives. He had no idea he was walking into my company. Mark stood beside me, adjusting his tie nervously. Man, he muttered, this place still feels unreal. I smirked. You said you wanted a better job. I did, he replied, but I didn't expect my best friend to secretly own a financial empire. You're handling it well. Mark leaned closer to the glass. Is that him? Yes. Victor Hale had just walked in, confident, calm, expensive suit, the same arrogant expression he wore the night he stole my fiancée. But he wasn't alone. Emily walked beside him. For a moment, my chest tightened. She looked completely different now. Elegant dress, diamond earrings, perfect makeup. Nothing like the girl who used to sit across from me on a sidewalk eating cheap street noodles. Mark noticed my expression. You okay? He asked quietly. I'm fine. You sure? Yes. He studied Victor carefully. That's the guy who told you to thank her? The same one. Mark shook his head. Man, I really hope this meeting ruins his week. I chuckled softly. It might ruin more than that. Inside the room, Sophia Bennett organized the presentation materials with her usual precision. Mark glanced at me again. You ready? I straightened my jacket. Let's go. We walked into the conference room. The executives nodded politely as we entered. Victor barely looked at us. To him, I was just another employee. Emily noticed me first. Her eyes widened instantly. Daniel, she whispered. The room grew slightly quieter. Victor frowned. You know this guy? Emily looked uncomfortable. He's my ex. Victor turned his head toward me, studying my face. Then he laughed lightly. Well, he said casually, this must be awkward for him. I said nothing. Sophia cleared her throat and began. Good morning, everyone. Let's begin the acquisition discussion. A large screen lit up behind her with charts and financial projections. Victor leaned back in his chair confidently. Your offer's decent, he said, but Hale Industries isn't desperate. Sophia remained calm. Of course not. We're negotiating from strength, Victor continued. I watched him carefully. Emily kept glancing at me, confused and nervous. Victor spoke again. If Hayes Global wants this deal, the valuation needs to change. Sophia folded her hands. Before we continue, Mr. Hale, there is something important you should know. Victor raised an eyebrow. Oh? Sophia stood up slowly. Allow me to introduce someone. She turned toward me. Every eye in the room followed her movement. The chairman of Hayes Global Holdings, Victor's confident smile faded slightly. Sophia's voice remained calm and clear. The owner of this company, she gestured toward me, Mr. Daniel Carter. Silence filled the room. Emily's mouth opened slightly. Daniel? She whispered again. Victor stared at me. His face slowly drained of color. I held his gaze. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Victor pushed his chair back and stood up. Several executives looked confused, and then something happened that shocked everyone in the room. Victor lowered his head slightly. Boss. A wave of whispers spread across the table. Mark nearly choked beside me. Emily looked like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Her voice trembled. Daniel, you're the owner? I leaned back calmly. Yes. Her eyes filled with disbelief. But you worked at the restaurant. You assumed a lot of things, I said quietly. Victor still stood there, respectful now, completely different from the man who mocked me a week ago. Emily looked between us in shock. You knew him? She asked Victor. Victor nodded slowly. Yes. Her voice cracked. And you called him boss? Victor exhaled once, then he said calmly, because he is. The meeting ended, but the silence it left behind followed me all the way to the elevator. Mark walked beside me, still shaking his head. Man, he said, I wish someone filmed Emily's face. Mark, I muttered. I'm serious, he continued. That was legendary. I pressed the elevator button. You're enjoying this too much. Can you blame me? The elevator doors opened. We stepped inside. Mark crossed his arms. So what now, Mr. Secret Billionaire? Stop calling me that. You literally bought a company today. I bought a problem, I replied. Mark smirked. Victor Hale looked like he saw a ghost. The elevator reached the ground floor. We walked toward the exit. Before we could leave, a familiar voice called out behind us. Daniel, wait! Mark glanced at me. Well, here we go. I turned around slowly. Emily hurried across the lobby toward me. Her confident expression from the meeting was gone. Her eyes looked panicked. Mark whispered, I'll wait outside. He slipped out the door, leaving us alone. Emily stopped a few steps away from me. Daniel, please. What do you want, Emily? Her voice trembled. Why didn't you tell me? I laughed quietly. You left because I wasn't rich enough. She shook her head quickly. That's not... Would it have mattered? Emily opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The silence answered for her, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know, she whispered. You didn't want to know. That's not fair. Fair? I repeated. You walked into my workplace holding another man's hand. Her shoulders shook. I made a mistake. Behind her, the glass doors opened. Victor Hale stepped outside. For the first time since I met him, he looked uncertain. He approached slowly. Daniel, he said. Emily turned toward him nervously. Victor stopped in front of me and straightened his posture. I didn't know who you were, he said carefully. I looked him directly in the eyes. You didn't need to. He stayed silent. You already showed me exactly who you are. Victor lowered his head slightly. You're right. Emily looked between us, confused. Victor, what's happening? He didn't answer her immediately. Instead, he looked back at me. My company needs this acquisition, he admitted. I know. You've seen the financial reports? Yes. His jaw tightened. Then you know we're carrying debt. Hidden debt, I corrected. Emily blinked. Victor, what debt? Victor exhaled slowly. Emily, this isn't the time. No, she said anxiously. What is he talking about? I crossed my arms. Your company is collapsing, I said. Her face went pale. That's not true. Victor rubbed his forehead. Emily, you told me everything was stable. Victor looked tired now. Investors pulled funding last quarter. She stared at him. You said the expansion was successful. It was supposed to be. Emily stepped back slightly. So, the deal with Hayes Global... Victor nodded once. That was our lifeline. Silence filled the space between us. Emily slowly looked back at me. Realization spread across her face. You control whether his company survives. Yes. Her voice cracked. Daniel, please. I frowned. Please what? Help us. The word us sounded strange coming from her. I shook my head slightly. You didn't say us last week. Her tears finally fell. I didn't understand what I was losing. I studied her quietly. In the distance, I noticed reporters gathering across the street. News traveled fast in this city. Victor noticed them too. They're already here, he muttered. Emily looked confused. Who? The press, Victor replied. Why? I answered calmly. Because your company's debt leak hit the media this morning. Victor closed his eyes briefly. Emily's voice trembled. A scandal? Yes. Her perfect world was cracking. Victor's investors were pulling out. Headlines were spreading, and the luxurious life Emily chose was beginning to crumble. She looked at me one last time. For the first time since I met her, there was no arrogance left, only regret. And slowly, she realized what she had truly lost. Months passed and life moved forward faster than I expected. Hayes Global grew rapidly under my leadership. Every week brought new projects, new investments, new responsibilities. But I wasn't doing it alone. One afternoon, I stood in the main conference room with the three people who helped make everything work. Sophia Bennett stood beside the screen reviewing financial projections. Mark Rivera leaned back in his chair, staring at the numbers like they might bite him. And across the table sat our newest strategic advisor, Elena Torres. Elena tapped the table lightly. "Daniel, if we acquire the Singapore Logistics Network, our Asian portfolio doubles." Sophia nodded. "She's right." Mark raised his hand. "Quick question." Elena looked at him. "Yes?" "Are we talking about spending hundreds of millions again?" Sophia answered calmly. "Yes." Mark sighed dramatically. "Man, I used to celebrate when I had $50 left." I laughed. "You're adjusting well." "Barely," he replied. Elena smirked. "You'll survive." Sophia turned back to me. "The board approved the expansion this morning." "Good," I said. Mark suddenly leaned forward. "Oh, speaking of survival, Victor Hale didn't." Sophia closed her tablet. "His company collapsed last week." Elena nodded slightly. "Banks seized most of his remaining assets." Mark whistled. "Brutal." I stayed quiet. Sophia watched me carefully. "You expected this outcome?" "Yes," I said. Victor's empire had fallen piece by piece. First investors pulled out, then lenders demanded repayment. Finally, the banks moved in. What once looked powerful disappeared in months. Mark crossed his arms. "And Emily?" I exhaled slowly. "She's tried contacting me." "How many times?" he asked. "Too many." Sophia glanced at the door. "Actually, Daniel." "What?" "Your receptionist just called." "And?" "There's someone outside asking to see you." I already knew the answer. "Emily?" Sophia nodded. Mark muttered, "Here we go again." I stood up. "What? I'll talk to her." Elena watched me carefully. "Do you want us to stay?" "No." I walked back to my office. When I opened the door, Emily was already inside. She stood near the window, staring at the city skyline. She looked different now. The expensive confidence she once wore had vanished. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Daniel." "What do you want, Emily?" Her voice shook. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't respond. She wiped her face. "I thought I wanted security," she continued. "I thought I needed someone powerful." Silence filled the room. Then she whispered, "But I didn't love his money." I watched her quietly. "I loved you." Her shoulders trembled. I was just scared. Scared of what? Of struggling forever. 5 years of memories flashed through my mind. Late-night dinners, shared dreams, promises. But I also remembered the night she walked away. I finally spoke. "You didn't leave because you were scared." Emily looked up. "You left because you thought I was worth less." Her tears fell harder. I was wrong. "Yes," I said calmly. She stepped closer. "Daniel, please." "For what?" "Can we start again?" The question hung in the air. For a moment, I said nothing. Then I shook my head. "No, Emily." Her breathing faltered. "Why?" "Because some choices only happen once." She covered her mouth, crying quietly. "I would do anything to fix it." "I know, but you can't." She stood there for a long moment. Then she slowly turned toward the door. Before leaving, she looked back at me. "I really did love you," she whispered. Then she walked out. The door closed softly. I sat down at my desk and stared at the empty room. Strangely, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel revenge either. Just something quiet, something final. For the first time in a long time, the past felt finished, and what remained wasn't pain, it was closure. A year can change everything. That thought crossed my mind often as I walked through the headquarters of Hayes Global. The company had grown faster than anyone expected. New offices, new international deals, more employees than I could remember by name. But the strange part was how normal it started to feel. One morning, I stepped into the executive conference room and found Mark already there, staring at a massive project map on the screen. He turned when he saw me. "Boss," he said with a grin, "don't start." "What? It's technically accurate." I sat down at the table. "How's the logistics project?" Mark folded his arms proudly. "Us, you running ahead of schedule." Really? Yep. I raised an eyebrow. Nothing went wrong? Oh, plenty went wrong, he said. But I fixed it. I smirked. You're starting to sound confident. Man, he replied, I run one of the most successful divisions in this company now. Confidence is required. Sophia walked into the room carrying a tablet. You should see his budget requests, she said calmly. Mark groaned. Here we go. Sophia sat down beside me. You approved his last expansion plan. Yes. That doesn't mean you should approve the next 3. Mark pointed at me. See? She's always attacking me. I chuckled. She's protecting the company. Sophia looked at Mark. And succeeding. Mark sighed dramatically. I miss the restaurant days. No, you don't, I said. Yeah, you're right, he admitted. Sophia turned to me. Speaking of restaurants, there's news about Victor Hale. I leaned back slightly. What happened? He finalized his bankruptcy settlement last month. Mark shook his head. Guy vanished. Pretty much, Sophia replied. No interviews, Mark continued. No public appearances. Some people start over quietly, Sophia said. I nodded once. And Emily? Sophia glanced at her tablet. She moved to another city 6 months ago. Mark looked at me carefully. You ever hear from her again? No. And? And nothing. Mark studied my face for a moment. Then he nodded. Good. The meeting ended soon after. By evening, most of the building had emptied. I stepped out onto the balcony at the top of headquarters. The city stretched out below me, glowing with thousands of lights. For a while, I just stood there, breathing in the cool night air. And then I heard footsteps behind me. Sophia joined me at the railing. Long day? She asked. Productive day. She looked at the skyline. You built something incredible here. We built it. Sophia smiled faintly. I suppose we did. Silence settled between us for a moment. Then she asked a quiet question. Any regrets? I thought about the past. Emily walking away. Victor's arrogance. The night everything collapsed. The pain felt real even now. But it didn't control me anymore. I shook my head. No. Sophia glanced at me. None at all? None that matter. She leaned against the railing. You changed a lot this year. So did you. That's true. I looked back at the city lights. Losing Emily had felt like the end of my life. But now I understood something. That moment had forced me to face who I really was. The man I had been hiding. Sophia studied my expression. What are you thinking about? I smiled slightly. The past. And how strange life can be. She waited. I finally said what had been sitting in my mind for months. The best revenge isn't destroying someone. Sophia nodded slowly. I agree. It's becoming someone they can never reach again. She smiled at that. The city stretched endlessly beneath us. For the first time in years, I felt something simple and powerful. Peace. Sophia looked at me again. So, what's next for Hayes Global? I looked out at the lights. Whatever we decide to build. She extended her hand. Then let's build something bigger. I shook her hand, and for the first time in a long time, I finally felt free.